Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending our webinar to learn more about the new features in ODT Rentals version 13. My name is Darren Christofferson. I've been with Open Door now almost 20 years, more than half of that working with rentals and with extensions and apps in Business Central. Our agenda today is going to include a few new features and a few enhancements. New loss and damage feature, we've enhanced rental notifications, we've improved approval workflow functions, and we added a new role center with improved performance. Loss and damage. This feature is to identify a quantity of units that have been returned that are not okay to put back into our inventory for either sale or rent in the future. So we're going to automatically add those to the sales line and charge it back to the customer who lost it or damaged it. Okay, so we'll pop over into Business Central. This is just standard Business Central Cronus with rentals installed. On the rental contract, we've added a couple of new fields on the rental contract line. So let's create a new contract. We're going to add this particular one. So this unit is linked to a item. So you might recognize 1920-S is the Antwerp conference table. So I linked my rental unit. We're going to rent these conference tables. I've got them in 3 rental locations, east, west, and main. And we're going to see how inventory is affected. If you're not familiar with how inventory is affected in rentals, a rental unit linked to an inventory item will have their capacity based on the inventory available at that location. So if I say I want to rent 3 from east, okay, I know I've purchased 10 earlier today into east location, so I've got plenty of capacity there. We're going to charge $500 a month for that, and now we can just ship that off. So when the customer returns it, we're going to inspect the rental units carefully, make sure they're not damaged. If they're returning all 3 at once, I'm going to enter the quantity to return, and these are the new fields I mentioned earlier. Loss and damage quantity is for you to identify what is no longer suitable to rent again or sell again, and we're going to say one of them was damaged. And then when we return the rentals, you'll see that on the sales line, that one quantity from the east location has been added to the sales line with the unit price that's on the conference table in sales. If this particular rental unit was linked to a fixed asset or a resource or something else that doesn't have a price, there's actually a price set up on the rental unit that we would use. So you would specify the price on the rental unit and we would use that instead. But in this particular case, it's set up on the inventory item. So it drops that in. And if for some reason we don't want to charge the customer 100% of the value of that item, we can modify the unit price or we can add a line discount. I'm not sure if you would want to do 100% or 50% or whatever, but if I can get my numlocks on here, there we go, 50%. So now it's going to charge the customer $250 instead of $500 per. Okay. Once we post this, that'll be added to the rental contract invoice and sent to the customer accordingly. You cannot delete a sales line that was created in this manner, but you can set 100% discount or set the unit price to be 0. And so that way we keep our inventory correct in this case, east, and we're clear on what we have available for rental or sale. Okay, so that was loss and damage. The next item we have are rental notifications. Okay, so we can set up a customer notification for upcoming or overdue actions, and that's based on the, I believe, the return date on the rental line. And so we've set up a couple of examples, one where rental units are due to be returned and one where we could ask the customer if they wanted to extend a rental. Maybe it's coming close to the due date. So the first thing we're going to do is pop back over into rentals. I'm going to close this down. We're going to look up how to set this up. So the first thing we're going to look for is rental notifications. Okay. And in here, I've already got a couple set up. Okay. This is something that you would set up yourself. Okay. And basically, you just say what notification type it is. These are upcoming or overdue, again, based on the return date. You define what subject you want and what you want the message body to say, right? In this one, this is upcoming. So it's, hey, you've got a couple out there. Let us know if you want them to be returned. For the overdue one, I believe we said something about, do you want to extend the lines? Yeah. Extend the rental return date since it's already overdue. And I think I'll show you how that works. There's a couple other things we need to do to set up. Obviously, you need an email account. And if you're not familiar where that is, you go into email accounts here and create a new email account. That's standard Business Central as well. And rental management setup. There's a notifications tab now. It was okay, so we have a send notification and then a notification reminder. So for upcoming, this is the number of days that are used to calculate when the upcoming trigger fires, and then the overdue is 0. This number would be 0. There's also on the customer, you can set up on the customer whether they get notifications or not. I've set that up for a datum corporation, and it's down here. We've got its own section, and you can specify a separate email from what is the standard email on the customer, and then you have to tick receive rental notifications. And the last thing that we need to look at is job queue. Something has to trigger this. Okay, so currently we have, so there's a code unit in business or in rentals that is called ODTRM notification. So you add the job queue entry set up to run ODTRM notifications on whatever days you want to set up, and then make sure it's recurring job. And this is number of minutes between runs. So this is a day. If you didn't know, 1440 is a day of minutes. So this will run every day. If I want to set it to go now, I would basically just run once in the foreground and confirm that the job queues are working. And if I pop over into my accounts email, this is what it looks like based on the setup I've created. So at the time I ran this, which was Tuesday, a couple days ago, I had 2 contracts that were overdue. And it basically said, hey, you want to update these or bring them back or update the return date. So that is rental notifications. Approval workflows. So this was introduced a couple of releases ago for rentals. There was some gaps, though, some things that didn't quite work the way the rest of sales notifications work. So we closed those gaps in this release, and we'll talk about that. Rental approval amount is set now. There never was one before. It was relying on the sales one. So now you can define a separate one for rental. And also you can specify an unlimited rental approvals. Again, it was relying on the sales unlimited before. It also works with all approver limit types. And if you're not familiar with that, that can be quite a interesting piece. So let's pop back over into Business Central and let's search for, first of all, ODT workflow setup. And in here, so I've already got a couple of records in here, but I didn't create those. I ran this generate default rental workflow setup. So that creates the template and enters the workflow setup into this table and basically adds a few things else. Also, if you go into workflows, right, you can see that I've already got threes. When I just said click add new from template, came down and there's these 4 templates were already created for me using that function. And so I've added them and you can see I've got one that's already enabled. In order to modify, I don't know if you know this or not, but in order to modify, you have to disable it. So I'm going to look at this one that's already disabled, but it's the same situation basically. The approver limit types is found inside this section. So if you click on the response to be add record restriction, plus other things, it's actually the create approval request where you define what you want the approver type to be and what you want the limit type to be. So in this particular one, it's salesperson purchaser, but we could set up specific approvers, workflow groups, and then also under the limit type, approver chain, direct approver, first qualified approver, and specific approver. So this is all standard Business Central stuff. This is not particular to rentals. The only thing that's different to rentals is the workflow templates and how it works in rentals. And if we look at the approval user setup, I think I've got a few guys in here. So I'm currently in this one where I'm logged in as the administrator, and you can see my salesperson purchaser code is Joe. So if I created a sales order with approvals and it relied on salesperson purchaser code, then that would be the approval for anything created for this salesperson. Okay. Now I've got this set up so that if Alex W creates one, his direct approver would be Alan D. And if Alan D has $10,000 limits of basically across the board, including rentals, and if it exceeds that, it goes up the chain to the next one, which would be admin, right? Because Alan approver ID is admin. So then when it gets to admin, and then the substitute is Christy, and she has unlimited as well. So you can see it kind of set up who, if you want the director in those settings, if you want somebody to be a direct approval or first qualified approval based on limits, or an approval chain if it was multi-level, one guy approves and then somebody else approves. There were some gaps in that previous release where some of this stuff didn't work correctly. Well, that's all been resolved now, and approval workflows work exactly the same in rentals as they do in sales. So that's a nice piece to have. Okay. Next piece is the new rentals role center. So we added a new role center that has a few things different from other role centers. So I'm now logged in as somebody else, account manager, Alex Wilbur, and we saw the setup and approvers in that. And I've created a quote, and you can see, I'll just show you this piece. Once the quote workflow is enabled, you'll see a request approval button here, and basically send approval requests just like you would in sales. Okay. And now there's an approval outstanding for this quote. Okay, let's go back to the role center. So if you notice here that there's, for the most part, only rentals related information on the screen. There's no purchasing. There's limited sales functions to only those sales functions that would be used in rentals. and that's specific to if you have advanced sales line shipping enabled, then it creates a sales order linked to the rental contract, and you ship through the sales order. So that's why we would have sales items in there. And I also included the email section just for notifications and whatnot. And you can see there's emails in my thing. So that's probably the request sent. And there's approvals. So I can see how my approvals are coming along. So right now, this is set. I need somebody to approve it, and then it'll pop over into the other queue. But this role center is much faster than the business manager role center because there isn't all of the other stuff that's included in there. And it's a little bit scaled down so that we're not seeing all of the other stuff. If somebody works primarily in rentals, this might be a good place for them to start. Okay. There's a few things that we have coming up in future releases. We have some usability improvements coming, substitution list for rental units, and this is an enhancement to the resolve shortages functionality that we introduced a few releases back. We have rental unit templates, and this would be similar to an item or a customer template. It makes it easier to create new rental units. GPS integration, this would be to gather information like metered usage, location, or perhaps even service error codes. We're going to introduce integration to additional remote signing partners. In previous release, or the one before, we introduced e-signatures with DocuSign. We're looking to add other signing partners into that. Signature pad integration, that would be a physical signature pad like a counter sales would use. We've already added that into service, and we're going to be adding that into rentals in future release. And then additional reporting improvements. We're always trying to find ways to improve the reporting that we have in rentals. And that concludes our presentation for today. If you have any questions about this update, please email us at hi@opendoorerp.com, and we will reply with an answer for you as soon as possible. Thank you for attending our webinar. Have a good day, everyone.